right, so this is the second chapter 4 video. And so this is number 3 in your practice problems. And again, the practice problems are always in the files section on Canvas. And the keys will be posted as well. So in this problem, we are trying to find out what is their tax refund or tax due at the end of the year. And this time we're given kind of a different group of information. All right, so let's talk about what we have. So we've got David and Lily, and we are given their tax liability on their joint tax return. So just this tells us that they're married filing jointly, okay? And their tax liability on their joint tax return is $3,100. They've got prepayments, and they have a child tax credit of $2,000. What is their either tax refund or taxes due? Okay, so normally we would start with gross income, and then we would get to our adjusted gross income, and then we would get to our taxable income, and then we would figure out our tax liability. But this time, we don't have our gross income, our adjusted gross income, or our taxable income. We just start with tax liability. And so our tax liability is $3,100, okay? And they've made prepayments, all right, of $1,900. So what does that mean? So their tax liability is the amount of tax they need to pay given their total tax situation. So what does that mean? So what that means is this $3,100 is the amount that they owe the federal government before they have any kind of tax credit. The amount that they owe the federal government for the privilege of living in the United States, given their filing status, their level of income, the number of children they have, all of those things. So given their total tax situation, this is what they owe for the privilege of living in the United States. Now, they have already made prepayments of $1,900. So they could be withholdings if they have W-2 income, or they could make estimated tax payments, okay? And then we're also told that they have a child tax credit of $2,000, okay? So that is what we know, all right? So based on all of that, let's figure out whether they owe taxes at the end of the year or whether they get a refund. So we're going to start with tax liability, and that was $3,100. Whoops, I don't know why I put an extra zero on there. We don't need that extra zero on there. Okay, next, and so this is before credits. Next, we have to take into account our tax credit. And we have a tax credit of $2,000, okay? So that tells us that our tax liability after tax credits is $1,100, okay? And then we need to take our prepayments into consideration. And so our prepayments are $1,900. And so again, compare our after-tax liability to our prepayments. And what do we notice? We notice that our prepayments are larger. So we owe the federal government $1,100 throughout the whole year, right? But we already paid in $1,900. So what that means, since our prepayments are larger than our tax liability after tax credits, this means we get a refund, okay? And so how much of a refund do we get? Well, we got to figure out that overage. So prepayments, 1,900 minus means we get an $800 means when we file our return, we get an $800 refund. All right, this was a pretty short video, but that's it.